What if your meticulously crafted morning unravels in a single chilling sentence? My day began with the usual ritual, brewing rich espresso, frying an omelet just the way she liked it. It ended with an empty closet, a cooling plate, and the flat, unfeeling declaration, Elias, I'm done with this marriage. This isn't the story of our beginning, but the unvarnished truth of our end. The only part of her I believe was real. She didn't even wait for me to swallow the last bite. My mouth was full of the same savory omelet she once praised as superior to any diners. Then, with a quiet clink that felt louder than a gunshot, Rhiannon set her fork down as if the food repulsed her. Elias, I'm done with this marriage, she announced, her eyes fixed somewhere beyond my shoulder, devoid of any hint of sorrow. It was the same tone she might use to cancel a forgotten subscription. I couldn't respond immediately. My throat constricted. Every other function in my body abruptly paused. My gaze drifted around the kitchen. A lone pearl earring, forgotten on the polished quartz. A coffee mug with a smear of lipstick. Definitely not her usual shade. In the corner, the perfectly folded laundry I'd left on the sofa sat untouched. I wanted to demand a reason, an explanation, a timeline, but instead I slowly dabbed my mouth with the crisp linen napkin I'd placed beside her plate. Then so am I heard myself say, the words tasting foreign yet freeing. I'm free. That's when her eyes finally met mine. For a fleeting instant, I saw a flicker of surprise, a tremor in her perfectly painted lips, as if the reins of control she always held had slipped through her manicured fingers. She left 10 minutes later. No grand exit, no dramatic suitcases. Just a canvas tote, her phone, and a pair of stiletto heels I'd never seen her wear in our home. The door didn't slam, it simply clicked shut, a sound far more unsettling than any rage. What followed wasn't merely heartbreak, it was something far worse, an oppressive silence that hummed in the walls, the kind that slowly erases the memory of your own voice. That night, lying in the hollow expanse of our bed, a strange cologne clung to her pillow. Spicy, sharp, unfamiliar. Definitely not the familiar scent she'd chosen for me years ago. An icy knot formed in my stomach. I got up, a cold dread seeping into my bones. Her closet was half empty, her favorite silver-handled toothbrush gone. The delicate sapphire earrings I'd given her vanished. And my sense of dignity? It had evaporated somewhere between the hum of the dishwasher and the basket of laundry I'd folded while she was texting him. 3 days bled into a monochrome haze. Food was an alien concept, showers an unnecessary effort. I scrolled endlessly through old photos, reread faded messages, dissected every memory in a desperate attempt to pinpoint where it all fractured. Then I stopped. Not because healing had begun, but because pure exhaustion finally claimed me. I made a decision, a small one, but profoundly mine. I dressed, walked out the door, and found refuge in a cozy, independent bookstore. I bought a novel, one she'd always dismissed as boring, and found a quiet corner in a cafe. For the first time in years, as I lost myself in those opening chapters, no one interrupted me. That night, I slept on her side of the bed, the unfamiliar territory surprisingly comforting. There were no tears, no flashes of anger, just the quiet contemplation of the ceiling. I realized something profound. I hadn't lost her. I had, in fact, found myself again. But life, as it always does, rarely allows a clean break. Ready to learn the shocking truth of how she tried to pull me back into her orbit? Exactly 1 month later, Rhiannon returned. Not to apologize, not to explain. She came to assess the damage, to see who had dared to take her place. And she absolutely detested what she saw. The knock echoed like a clap of thunder through the apartment on a quiet Sunday morning. I was folding laundry, a low-budget cooking show murmuring on the television. I wasn't expecting anyone. No deliveries, no friends. I hesitated, a strange premonition prickling my skin, then opened the door. There she stood, Rhiannon, a vision of curated perfection. Sunglasses too large for her face, lipstick a dramatic crimson for such an early hour, and that same canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder as if she'd simply stepped out for an errand. Her eyes swept over me, a silent appraisal. I imagined her expecting a shell-shocked wreck in sweatpants, hollow-eyed and puffy, subsisting on frozen pizza and self-pity. Instead, she found me clean-shaven, collared, and for the first time in ages, genuinely serene. She offered a weak, practiced smile, as if our last conversation hadn't vaporized our marriage. "Hey," she cooed, her voice saccharine, as if we'd merely bumped into each other at a farmer's market, not at the threshold of the life she'd so casually abandoned. I was in the neighborhood, a blatant lie, and we both knew it. Before I could formulate a reply, a warm, casual voice drifted from inside the apartment. "Elias, where's the other coffee mug? Yours is in the sink." No pretense, just natural ease. I stepped aside just enough for Rhiannon to see, and there she was, Cora Lane, a messy bun escaping her hair tie, comfortably perched on what used to be Rhiannon's spot on the sofa, barefoot, legs tucked, sipping coffee from one of my mugs as if it were her 100th time. She looked up, a genuine smile lighting her face, utterly oblivious to the woman standing frozen in the doorway. "Hey, babe, everything okay?" Rhiannon's composure shattered. Her eyes darted frantically between Cora and me, desperately trying to process the scene unfolding before her. I saw it, the minuscule crack in her perfect facade, confusion, disbelief, and then, unmistakably, a surge of raw jealousy, perhaps even panic. "I should go," she muttered, backing away before I could utter a single word. She spun on her heels so quickly I barely caught a glimpse of her face. I didn't follow. I didn't call out. Instead, I gently closed the door, locked it, and let out a long, shuddering breath. Cora tilted her head, a playful glint in her eyes. "Was that your ex?" I nodded. "Yeah, I think she was checking the vacancy sign." Cora smirked. "Too bad. Room's taken." But here's the crucial detail I failed to grasp then. Rhiannon wasn't done. She hadn't merely come back to see me. She'd returned with a sinister blueprint, a plan designed to dismantle everything I was carefully rebuilding. And next time, she wouldn't bother knocking. What I'm about to show you next is how she brazenly crossed every boundary. It was a Tuesday evening when I arrived home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. Not forced, not kicked in, just open. My immediate thought was that I must have forgotten to close it fully, but I never forget, not since she left. I developed a ritual of triple-checking every lock, every night, a habit forged in the crucible of loss, designed to protect not just my home, but my fragile peace. Inside, everything appeared normal. Too normal. My shoes were neatly aligned by the door, my keys resting in their usual dish. But there was one subtle, unsettling anomaly. The faint, lingering scent of vanilla and musk. Rhiannon's perfume. I rounded the corner into the kitchen and stopped dead in my tracks. There she was. Rhiannon, seated at my kitchen table, sipping tea from one of the mugs she'd left behind, legs crossed, her posture unnervingly perfect, as if she owned the place, as if she hadn't ghosted me 30 days prior, casually announcing the demise of our marriage over breakfast. She looked up, that same old expression I now recognized as a precursor to a lie. Calm, polished, rehearsed. "Elias," she said, her tone unnervingly casual, as if this were some routine reunion. "We need to talk." I stood frozen, unable to move or speak, too stunned to even question how she'd gained entry. Then it dawned on me. The spare key, the one I'd never bothered to retrieve, never changed. "I made a mistake," she began, her fingers delicately tracing the rim of her mug. "Things with him didn't work out. He's not who I thought. And I've been thinking about us, about how maybe we rushed things." I should have thrown her out. I should have unleashed a torrent of rage. But I stood there like an idiot, letting her weave her intricate tapestry of regret, threaded with nostalgia and selective memory. There was no mention of the 8 months of lies, no admission of infidelity. Just vague, sanitized terms like confusion and bad timing. Then she uttered a sentence that stole the very air from my lungs. "I saw her. That girl, the one who answered the door the other day. She's not me." I stared at her, feeling something cold and clear crystallize in my chest. Not anger, not pain, but absolute certainty. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "She's not you. She's honest." The silence that followed was more deafening than any scream. Rhiannon's eyes darkened, her carefully constructed composure cracking. "You really think you've moved on? That fast?" I held her gaze for a long moment. "No, not fast. Just finally." She rose slowly, her jaw tight, all softness vanished from her tone. "This isn't over, Elias." With that, she walked out. No apology, no closure, but a sick knot formed in my gut because I knew instinctively that when Rhiannon declared something wasn't over, she meant it. My hands were trembling as I realized the true depth of her vendetta. I had meant to change the locks the minute she walked out. I'd even bought the hardware. It sat unopened on my counter for 3 weeks, a quiet dare I was too exhausted to meet. But after Rhiannon let herself in, calmly attempting to slide back into my life as if she hadn't detonated it, I finally acted. Every lock, every password, every digital trace of her was meticulously erased, or so I believed. The following week unfolded with an unsettling calm. Cora stayed over a few nights. We cooked simple dinners, laughed easily, even danced once in the kitchen to a song that came on by accident. For a fleeting moment, I dared to hope I might just survive the worst of it. But calm, I've learned, is often just the silence before the drop. And Rhiannon Nash never accepted being quietly replaced. It began with a message. Not to me, but to Cora. A cold, calculated, direct message from a throwaway account. No photo, no name. Just a chilling, "Heads up, you might want to ask him why his ex still has a key." Then another. "He's not as done with me as he says. Ask him about June 14th. There was no context, no proof, just the insidious poison of suggestion, designed to seep in slowly. Cora didn't say anything right away, but I felt the shift, the imperceptible pause before she'd kiss me goodbye. The way she'd take her phone into the bathroom and close the door, a habit she'd never had before. One night she asked, her tone half joking, "You and your ex? Were you really over before I met you?" I laughed, but she didn't. And that's when the terrifying truth hit me. Rhiannon wasn't merely trying to win me back. She was trying to ruin what came after her. Then came the absolute worst part. A handwritten letter left in my mailbox, addressed to the girl who thinks she knows him. 6 pages of carefully cherry-picked memories, warped timelines, and subtle accusations. "He cried in my lap last winter," it began. "Said he didn't know who he was without me. He told me he'd never love anyone the way he loved me. Has he told you that yet?" At the bottom, a chilling postscript. "If you're reading this, you deserve to know how sloppy second chances taste." I never gave Rhiannon the satisfaction of a response, but I wish you could have witnessed her face when Cora, holding that venomous letter in her hand, simply said, "Elias didn't have to tell me any of this, Rhiannon. I already knew. I just wanted to see how low you'd truly go." Rhiannon's eyes remained as cold as stone, but her lips curled into something far more disturbing than a smile. A promise. Rhiannon had always been unpredictable, but she used to operate within certain boundaries, lines she wouldn't cross. That was before she transformed into the kind of person who smiled while sinking knives into backs she once claimed to cherish. I mistakenly thought the anonymous messages and the venomous letter were her peak, a desperate, petty attempt to ruin what she couldn't reclaim. But once again, I underestimated her. It started during a crucial meeting. My phone rang. It was Bernard Kent, my boss. Strange. He only called if something was critically wrong. When I answered, his tone was clipped, his words carefully rehearsed. "Elias, we've received a few anonymous complaints about you. Nothing formal yet, but HR will need to follow up." The blood drained from my face. "Complaints about what?" He hesitated. "They allege inappropriate behavior, personal misconduct, allegedly involving a subordinate." There was no subordinate. I didn't even manage anyone directly. But that didn't matter. All it took was the accusation to plant the insidious seed of doubt, just as she'd done with Cora. By the time I reached home, my stomach was a twisted knot of dread. I desperately wanted to disbelieve it was her, but who else could it be? She knew where I worked, how to phrase things, just ambiguously enough to ignite a fire without leaving a traceable path. I checked my email, nothing. But that night, from a burner account, a message appeared that made my skin crawl. Try starting over now, golden boy. I didn't sleep a wink. Cora tried to soothe me, but I could see the anxiety seeping into her too. I was afraid to touch anything, as if my entire life had suddenly turned to fragile glass. Here's what no one tells you about surviving a reputation assassination. 48 hours later, HR closed the matter. There was no evidence, no corroboration, no names attached to the vague claims, but it was irrelevant. The whispers had already begun. Colleagues looked at me differently, as if something dark and unproven had been irrevocably stapled to my back. Rhiannon knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't just attempting to ruin me romantically. She was systematically trying to erase my reputation, my peace, my entire future. Peace by agonizing peace. But here's the thing about people like her. They never stop at just one blow. Because when tearing down isn't enough, they come for blood. And deep down, I knew the worst was yet to come. Rhiannon always knew precisely where to inflict the deepest wounds. Not just where it would sting, but where it would bruise and fester beneath the surface. I foolishly believed she'd exhausted her cruel tactics. But a message from my younger sister Silas proved me devastatingly wrong. Hey, Rhiannon was here. She said she needed to talk. What's going on? I reread the text 3 times, my chest tightening as if a rope had been cinched around it. Rhiannon hadn't spoken to anyone in my family since her abrupt departure. She'd always disdained them, dismissing them as small-town thinkers, as if kindness and honesty were symptoms of mediocrity. So if she showed up at Silas's house, it wasn't to reconnect. It was to expertly stir the pot. I called Silas immediately. Her voice was laced with an uneasy hesitation. She said she just wanted to clear the air, that she was worried about you. She made it sound like you were spiraling, that maybe you weren't taking the separation well. I closed my eyes, a wave of nausea washing over me. Did you believe her? There was a long, painful pause. Elias, I didn't want to, but she was crying. She said you'd been drinking too much, calling her late at night, that you had these dark moments. I didn't know what to think. I hadn't spoken to Rhiannon since she stormed out of my apartment weeks ago. I hadn't touched alcohol in nearly 2 years, but the damage was already done. Once that insidious seed is planted, it doesn't require proof, just time and silence. I hung up feeling sick to my core. The next day, my mother Maya called. Her voice was tight with concern. Elias, what on earth is going on with you and Rhiannon? She came by the shop, said she still loves you, but she's genuinely scared for your mental health. That's when the horrifying realization hit me. She wasn't trying to win me back anymore. She was meticulously constructing a narrative, one where she was the concerned ex-wife, valiantly trying to help a man who couldn't let go. She was rewriting our entire story while I was still living in it, and the more she spoke, the less I recognized myself in her twisted version. But I wasn't going to let her finish that story because if she wanted a public show, I was about to deliver a performance she'd never forget. How much damage can one person inflict when they rewrite your entire life story? It wasn't a calculated plan. Honestly, I just craved a quiet cup of coffee. It had been an absolutely brutal week. Work still felt charged with unspoken tension. Cora, though endlessly patient, was growing weary of constantly looking over her shoulder. My own family was caught in the impossible dilemma of trusting me or worrying for me, all thanks to Rhiannon's carefully planted fictions. I thought a simple walk to the cafe might grant me 5 minutes of normalcy. I didn't expect to walk straight into her. There she was, at a corner table, laughing conspiratorially with 2 of my mother's closest friends, touching their arms with an air of intimate belonging, as if she hadn't detonated my life and left me standing in the ashes. I should have turned and walked out, but something inside me snapped. Perhaps it was the weeks of suffocating silence. Perhaps the raw humiliation. Or perhaps it was simply the way she tilted her head and smiled, that fake polished expression I now recognized as her most dangerous mask. I walked straight up to the table. Rhiannon, we need to talk. She blinked, feigning surprise at my presence. The two women shifted uncomfortably, sensing the sudden, palpable shift in the atmosphere. Rhiannon placed a delicate hand on her chest, her voice oozing concern. Elias, darling, are you quite all right? Do you want to sit down? I didn't sit. I looked her dead in the eye and said, my voice cutting through the cafe's hum, you need to stop. Her face didn't flinch. Stop what? Stop pretending you're the victim. Stop going to my family, making up stories, messaging people from fake accounts. Stop trying to destroy what you already threw away. Heads began to turn. A waitress at the next table froze, coffee pot mid-pour. Rhiannon's smile widened, not warmly, but cruelly. I think you're upset, Elias. Perhaps we should talk somewhere private. I took a step back. No, no more behind closed doors. You made this public, so let's keep it public. She rose slowly, brushing an invisible speck from her sleeve. I understand you're hurting. I am too. But this isn't the way to get help. Help? She turned to the two women, her voice dripping with sorrow. He hasn't been the same. I worry about him. That's all I've ever done. And just like that, in less than 30 seconds, she expertly flipped the script, making me look like the unhinged one, and herself, the misunderstood ex-wife trying to protect me from myself. I walked out, humiliated, my heart pounding, fists clenched. But I wasn't done, because for once, I wasn't going to play defense. My hands were trembling, but I knew I couldn't back down this time. Justice in real life doesn't unfold in a sudden, dramatic crescendo. There's no swelling music, no slow clap, just the quiet, persistent truth inching forward like dawn through a blackout curtain. But it came. 2 days after the cafe incident, I received a message from Silas. Short, direct. We need to talk. I steeled myself for more doubt, more damage control. But when I arrived at her house, she opened the door, eyes red, a stack of printed messages clenched in her hand. She messaged me again, Silas said, her voice shaking. This time she slipped up. Rhiannon had sent screenshots, fake ones of course, of old texts she claimed were from me, desperately begging her to come back. But she'd made a crucial error. The date stamp on the messages didn't match the fabricated timeline she'd told my family. And worse, she had accidentally used my old number, one I had disconnected 6 months prior. Silas had already shown the evidence to Maya, to Bernard Kent, and to Cora. It turned out Rhiannon's web of lies had too many threads, and eventually they tangled themselves into an undeniable mess. In just 48 hours, the truth came crashing down, exposing every calculated lie. Maya called me, her voice thick with apologies. Bernard Kent invited me for lunch, revealing that HR had flagged Rhiannon's email as suspicious weeks ago. Cora simply looked at me, her eyes filled with unwavering trust, and said, I knew. I just needed everyone else to catch up. I changed my number, changed the locks again, and most importantly, I changed how I saw myself. I wasn't the broken husband anymore, desperately trying to make sense of her chaos. I was just a man who had survived it, and finally chose peace over performance. Rhiannon hasn't reappeared since. I don't know where she is. I don't care. Whatever story she's weaving now, I am no longer a character in it. Mine is still being written, and this time I'm the one holding the pen. Comment below. What's the most unbelievable thing someone has ever tried to convince others about you? Let's hear your wildest truth versus lie stories. Don't forget to subscribe, where your story might just be the next one we tell. Thanks for being here. Stay honest, stay sharp, and never let someone else write your ending.